Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 30-Minute Gospel. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host as we open and study the Bible together. I'll be reading from the King James Version, but you can feel free to read whichever translation that best suits you. I would just recommend that you have a version that does not delete verses from God's holy word. Each video will be a biblical teaching of 30 minutes or less. My material is completely 100% free, so you can share these videos with family members, coworkers, friends, or anyone you know who either needs to hear the Word of God or wants to study it in a casual setting. The gospel is free to all, so I will not accept any donations, gifts, or beg viewers for money. Please give to your local church or Christian organization of your choosing. You can reach out to me with questions or comments at 30minutegospel at gmail.com, but please keep your message respectful and cordial. Well, welcome again, everybody, to the 30-Minute Gospel. We are on video 6. Man, we got a lot of videos on the end times and the return of Jesus Christ. Last time we kind of talked a little bit about the rapture and kind of reiterated that. But I want to kind of go over what we talked about, that the Antichrist is going to there is going to be an Antichrist who is going to do a 7-year or present a 7-year peace treaty in the nation of Israel. And we talked about that this will kickstart the 70th week of Daniel. That week has not happened yet. Okay? Those weeks can only occur. Now, we talked about that there would be 490 years from the time that the Jews were to return. Daniel received this revelation, and it would be that when they returned to the land, when the order was given, it would be 490 years before the end would come. Okay? So, in order for all of this to work, the Jews have to be in their land. Okay? Well, what happened was there was 400, and at 483 years, Jesus was cut off. Okay, that's where the Messiah came, and everything else after 483 years was right around his crucifixion and his resurrection. But because the Jews refused to believe and refused to accept him, the clock stopped. And they were, because God had had decided judgment on them, and they were moved from the land by 70 A.D. So the clock has stopped. They're now back in the land. The clock is waiting to start again. Since they're back in there, we're waiting, and the clock will start when the peace treaty is signed. That will begin the 7-year tribulation. The peace treaty, as we discussed, it's it's discussed. It will be a 7-year peace treaty. Okay, it says there he will make a treaty for 1 week. A week is 7 years. Each day is a representation of a year. Okay, so that would be he's going to make a peace treaty for 7 years. Okay, the temple will be rebuilt. That's why it's not dealing with 70 AD. We talked about that. John wrote the book of Revelation in 90 AD on the island of Patmos. Around the same time he wrote 2nd and 3rd John, and I think 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John were all written around the same time. They're all written at Patmos. Um, and so when he wrote that, the temple had already been destroyed for 20 years at that point. The temple was destroyed in 70 AD by Titus. Well, if that is the case, it says in Revelation chapter 11 verses 1 through 2, they tell John to measure the temple. Okay, that's what they tell them. And in Second Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul talks about in verse 4 that that the Antichrist is going to set up the image of God and claim that he is God in the temple. Well, the temple has been destroyed. That never happened. There was no son of perdition. There was no Antichrist that happened in 70 AD. So we know we're going to talk about the abomination of desolation, but we are going to, but we're going to, you can see that the temple is going to be rebuilt. But do not measure the outer courts. That's what it says in 11. It says, but the court which is without the temple leave out. The measure of not for is given unto the Gentiles. That is what one of the peace treaties that's going to occur is. If you look at the Temple Mount, what sits there right now? The Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. All right, the Al-Aqsa, something like that, mosque. All right, they sit on the Temple Mount. there's going to be a sharing agreement. Okay, there's going to be a sharing agreement that's going to happen there. All right, where part of that Temple Mount, the Jews will be able to rebuild the temple, and then they're going to share it with the mosque and the Dome of the Rock. It's going to be under a sharing agreement. That's going to be the peace treaty that's going to be signed there. That's why it's been given to them. It says, how long has it been given to them? It will be given to them for 42 months. What is that? That's 3.5 years of the 7-year tribulation, of the 7-year peace treaty. 7-year peace treaty, 3.5 years into it, he's going to break it. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so does that make sense? I hope that makes sense to everybody. That's where we come up with this. Okay. Okay, now the next thing we're going to talk about is after 3.5 years. I'm not going to go in chronological order with this. Okay, I'm just giving you. There are some great timelines that you can get online. I think David Jeremiah has a good one. John Hagee has a good one. Jimmy Evans has a good one. You can pick up some timelines online about what's going to happen during the tribulation, but I'm just going to go over all the different events and tell you when they're going to happen, but I'm not going to tell you in order when they're going to happen. Okay, the abomination of desolation is going to happen. Okay, now the abomination of desolation is spoken about in Daniel chapter 12. Okay, it's spoken of by Daniel chapter 12, verses 7 and 13. So if you go to Daniel, all right, Daniel chapter 12, verse 7 says this: And I heard a man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, which he held up his right hand and his left hand, and unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for time and a half. All right, times and a half. That's 3.5 years. And when he shall have accomplished, scatter the power of the holy people, and all these things shall be finished. Okay, so you hear that the times, and half a time and a half. That's 3.5 years. Okay, so 3.5 years into this thing. So I want y'all to understand this, and that's what they're talking about. That 3.5 years. And then if you go to Daniel chapter 12 verses 13, it says this. Daniel chapter 12 verse 13 says, But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of days. Okay, so that's what it's talking about. So we're supposed to watch this, but that's what Daniel is talking about, this abomination that causes desolation. All right, and it says in let me see here, it's at the midpoint of the tribulation. Okay, so I'm getting that through there so you can see this. This is the midpoint of the tribulation. So Daniel chapter 13 says that again, as we said. And go rest stand in the lot at the end of those days. That's what it's talking about. Daniel chapter 12 verse 13 talks about the midpoint, time and a half. Revelation chapter 12. Okay. Revelation chapter 12. So if you go to Revelation chapter 12, and verse 14, it says this: And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time from the face of the serpent. Okay, so you can see this is the midpoint after the abomination of desolation. Okay, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. You're going to see that the Jews are going to have to flee to an area and be protected for 3.5 years. Okay, they're going to have to be protected. Why? Because the first 3.5 years they were protected by the Antichrist, but now they're under extreme persecution. Some people have said they're going to flee to Petra in Jordan. Maybe, I don't know, but they're going to have to do it. So that's time and a half a time. All right. Now Daniel 9:27 actually speaks about the abomination of desolation. Okay. So if you go to Daniel chapter 9 verse 27, it says, And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. This is talking about the Antichrist. This is the peace treaty. Okay. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations that shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay, so there's going to be, it says he's going to make a covenant for 1 week. All right, now people will say, well, this was fulfilled with Titus. Titus didn't make a covenant for 1 week with the Jewish people. It didn't happen. There was no peace treaty that he did. Okay, so it is not there. He didn't set up any abomination causing desolation. Okay, that's not what he did. He did not do that. All right, the abomination of desolation has not happened yet. Now there might have been a foreshadowing of that, but it has not happened yet. All right, because there has been no peace treaty. There has to be a peace treaty in order for that to happen. A covenant. There was no covenant the Romans made with them. There was none. Okay, and of course Matthew 24:15 talks about this. So if you go to Matthew 24. And Jesus speaks about it in other verses, um, in Mark and Luke, but we're just going to look at Matthew chapter 24. Um, in verse 15, he says this: When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whosoever readeth, let him understand. Now I spoke about that in another video. If you notice it, it says this is how you know this hasn't happened yet, because he says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place. Listen to what it says. It says, whosoever readeth, let him understand. Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say, let him whosoever listen or hears, let him understand. It said, whosoever readeth. Okay? How are people going to read when the Gospels and nobody knew what to read? Okay? The canon of Scripture was not put together until now. Follow me with logically about this. The canon. Oh, I'm sorry. Part of my thing's coming up. The canon of Scripture was not. The Scripture wasn't canonized and put into the 66 books of the Bible until the Council of Nicaea in 325 A.D. Okay, the Constantine had called together. Okay, they had all sorts of Gospels out there. How are Christians supposed to be able to read this? They don't know. Some of them may not have been reading this. They may have read the book of John. It's not mentioned in the book of John. They may have been reading other gospels that weren't the gospels that Jesus had put to, or that God had inspired to put together. Okay, these 66 books. They were reading all sorts of texts. They didn't know whose letters to read. Paul's and Peter's. There were all sorts of letters. Everything was out there. There was mass confusion. They wouldn't understand. They wouldn't have been able to read. How is this prophecy going to be fulfilled? It's going to be fulfilled, but it says, whosoever readeth. That's us. The canon is together, which means that it didn't happen in 70 AD by just logical standards. Because, I mean, even if it did, God would be, I mean, what kind of, only a few people by that point had probably read the Gospel of Matthew or Mark or Luke. So there would be probably not many Christians and Jews that they would have been a mass slaughter. This is going to happen with at the end times where people can see it. Especially Jews can see it. When they see the abomination of desolation, people can share the scripture with them to get out. Okay? That's what you have to pay attention to what it says. It doesn't say whosoever listens. It says whosoever reads or hears. It doesn't say, it says whosoever readeth. So it's reading. You have to read it. So it's talking about the future canonical scriptures that we have together in the Bible, so people can read it and understand and know when the times are near. Okay, does that make sense? All right, and Second Thessalonians chapter 2 also talks about the abomination of desolation in not in direct terms like that, but if you go to Second Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4 says, talking about the Antichrist, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Okay? So this is he's going to go into the temple. This is talking about the abomination of desolation. Now, what's going to happen that's going to cause this whole abomination of desolation? Well, I kind of agree with a lot of people who believe what's going to happen is when the temple is rebuilt, the Jews are going to start the sacrificial system again. The church is going to be gone, so the law is now going to be in place. All right. So the Jews are actually going to start sacrificing animals. And I believe what's going to happen is over time, the Antichrist is going to get pressure from the animal rights advocates about the sacrificing of the animals. I think they're going to go, this is just brutal. They're just sacrificing animals day and night. These poor animals, they're just getting killed, and yada, 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 and all this garbage. And then the Antichrist is going to stop it. Okay? Now, when he comes in and he's going to stop it, and he's going to come in and put something in the temple, some abomination in the temple. Is he going to? Some have suggested he might slaughter a pig, like Epiphanes did in around the 100 in the 100s BC with the revolt of the Maccabees. It quite possibly could be. Some have said that it could be an AI image, something that, like maybe a statue that's able to talk, and they use mystical powers with it, and it talks and it causes people to bow down and worship it. Maybe it's an image of, it says the image of the beast, that's what it's talking about. The false prophet is going to set up the image of the beast in the temple. So that could be that could be what it is as well. It's an image of the Antichrist. I'm not sure. But the abomination of desolation has not happened yet. I want y'all to understand that, because the temple has to be rebuilt, as we talked about. It didn't happen in 70 AD. We know there was no that it didn't happen there, the abomination of desolation, because there was no peace treaty. There was no 7-year covenant. Okay? And then the temple was destroyed. So it has to be a later 7-year covenant. All right? And we still haven't had the war of Gog and Magog that's happened yet, and I think that that's what's going to be the instigator of the 7-year tribulation. The Gog Magog war is going to I think that the church will be raptured either sometime during it or right after it, before the peace treaty, because the Antichrist is going to have to come in and set up a peace treaty because of all the chaos from that war. And everything, and all the chaos over the Temple Mount. The Jewish people are probably going to be very, very emboldened because of the victory that they get over those nations, that they're going to try to push it off, and then they push the Muslims out, and then they're going to set up a peace treaty between them to share the Temple Mount. Then after 3.5 years, the Antichrist is going to break the peace treaty because of all the animal sacrifices and the push from the animal rights advocates to end that. So then when that's over with, then he'll come up and set up this abomination of desolation. Okay, does that make sense? So I hope everybody understands that. Okay. Now, we're going to talk about the first 6 seals, okay, that is going to happen. So if you go to Revelation chapter 6, this is verses 1 through 17. Okay, 1 through 17. So I'm going to read all these verses. I'm going to read basically the whole chapter of chapter 6. And then we'll go over the what they're going to be talking about, okay? So chapter 1, or chapter 6, verse 1, it says, "And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard it as it were the noise of thunder, one of the 4 beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer." So the white horse is the representation, most people believe, is the representation of the Antichrist. Okay, he comes with a bow, but if you notice, it does not say he comes with an arrow. It just says a bow. So he doesn't have an arrow. An arrow is meaning he's not violent. He's coming in as a peace man. Okay, he doesn't actually have an arrow to cause war and death. He comes in as somebody, as a peace, as a man of peace, as a man of white. He looks pure. He's the color white, so he looks pure. These sorts of things. Okay, does that make sense? So he's coming in as a pure thing. And notice it says he has a crown, and he's going to go out to conquer. So that's what he's doing. He's going to unite the world. He's going to go out to conquer. He's going to unite the world under his rule. We're going to talk about that. And a crown was given unto him. That means the world is going to crown him as the one world ruler, or the Antichrist. Okay, so that makes sense. It says that. Okay. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard a second, this is verse 3. I heard a second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Okay, so the red horse makes war. Okay, so there's going to be wars and things like this. The second horseman, this can be representative of his of the his the Satan and all these people, and some of the people around the Antichrist, who are going to instigate wars and things like that. Okay, so then it says, verse 5, it says, "And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I have heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." Okay, so the black horse is representation of economic and turmoil and famine that's going to happen. So we're going to have war. The Antichrist is coming in. He's going to be a man of peace. But as time goes on, there's going to be wars, the red horse, and there's going to be the black horse, which is economic turmoil and famine. Okay, there's going to be he seems to be a man that's going to put forth and be the solution, but in the end, he's just going to create chaos. Okay, he's just going to create chaos. All right. Verse 7 says, "And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast say, Come and see. And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed behind, and hell followed with him. And power was given unto them over a fourth part of the earth to kill with the sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth." Okay, this pale horse is actually the interpretation of it. The word is actually there for pale horse. It's actually the word chloros, which is a Greek word where we get chlorophyll from, which means green. Okay, green. It means it's basically death that is going to come on this earth. So you're going to see war, economic turmoil, famine, death. Some people have suggested that these are what are known as the very famous four horsemen of the apocalypse. Some people have suggested that the fourth horse is the nation of, or the Islam. It's going to be the Islamic nations that basically are going to be uniting because they cause a lot of war. The descendants of Ishmael are going to run rabid over the earth and cause a lot of death and destruction. Because they have these different radical groups and things like that. And green is the color of Islam. I mean, if you look at, like, Libya was an Islamic nation, their flag's green. Most of their flags are green. The four horsemen, I've heard different things from him. I've heard the interpretation that the white horse was actually the four horsemen were representations of different times in the churches, in world history. Like, the white horse represents the control of the church, which goes, because white is the robes that like the Pope wears and a lot of the priests wear, and they're going to have control over. They had control over basically west of the most of the world, in most of the Western world too, for like 1,000 years. And then the black horse is the representation of of capitalism. Capitalism takes place at Renaissance and kind of keeps going for the next 300-400 years. Where capitalism is running things, and then the red horse is a representation of communism. Which communism takes place and it goes over 100 years, and then the green horse is Islam. I've heard that before. Somebody else pointed out to the fact that these four colors too also tend to be very prominent within Islamic countries' flags: black, red, white, and green. These four colors show up in like the Iraq flag, and a lot of, I think, in Iran and some of these other countries. Those three, at least the majority of those colors show up. Some of flags, it's all four colors. It's not all of them, but you'll get like three, usually about three or more of those colors. Those are very interesting interpretations. I think my view on the four horsemen is this all occurs around the time of around the beginning parts of it. The Antichrist, and then it represents the turmoil he's going to bring upon the earth. After this point, death. I'm not so sure about Islam. It may be Islam. I don't know, but I just think it represents death. It could be some people have suggested the Antichrist is Islamic. He could be. I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting study about that. But the four horsemen kind of come into play with this, and most people know the four horsemen. Um, Four horsemen of the apocalypse. Most people have heard of them. Most people, if you're a wrestling fan, remember the four horsemen, which was led by Ric Flair. They called themselves the four horsemen. That name is kind of been used a lot throughout history. But I just believe, like I said, that the white horse comes first. That's the Antichrist. He's going to come on the scene between 7 years. And then as time goes on, war's going to break out, famine and economics, which we're going to talk about, the mark of the beast, the economic problems that are going to occur, and then the war and the death that's going to occur, because it talks about that with the death. It says, it give over a fourth of the world will be killed. Okay, that's a lot of people. If all 8 billion people, now some people say, well, if we got 8 billion people on the earth, that means 2 billion are going to die. Well, but that is, you're not counting the people that get raptured up. So we don't know how many are going to. But if you just, let's just say it's 8 billion people, a fourth is 2 billion people. That's a lot of people. Okay. All right, and we'll just leave it right there for this. I thank you all again for tuning in. Like I said, we are still have got a lot. I have not gotten through this, man. It's going to be weeks and weeks and weeks that we're going to get through this. But I hope you're enjoying the study and understanding where all these verses come from. Yeah, I always encourage you to like and share this video with anybody that you need. I spread, just to spread this word out. Anybody who might enjoy it. I also have a video on my Rumble and on my YouTube page that's called Peace with God, the Gospel Message. Please send that message out to anybody you know who needs to hear the gospel. We need to get people saved as quickly as possible right now because we don't have much time left. Okay? All right, and I also have a Facebook page, 30 Minute Gospel with Chris, that you can like and follow. I also have an email. If you'd like to email me, my email is 30minutegospel at gmail.com. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me. Okay, and I thank you all for tuning in again this week. And just remember, I will leave you with this. As Theodore Roosevelt once said, a thorough knowledge of the Bible is worth more than a college education. God bless you all.